Hi there, I'm Anushka, mum to my 1-year-old son, and today we will be discussing this book, Rapunzel. It's a twist on the classic Rapunzel story. I wouldn't say a twist, it's a retelling of the story with a cultural lens, is how I would phrase it. So it is retold and illustrated by Rachel Isadora, and it's one of the another one of her books that I also have is recommended in the list of very first books for baby, and I saw this on the shelf and I was like, oh, that's interesting, I should try reading this. I really like the illustrations, and we'll go through the book and you'll see why. So this retelling of Rapunzel is in an African setting, very traditional African setting. So it's this beautiful sun, which even the sun I feel like has like a kind of with a tribal kind of feel to it in the way that she's done the sun. So it's kind of setting the scene where there was a man and a woman who longed to have a baby, and one day their wish was granted and she came to be with child. And you can see that they're wearing a traditional African headdress and earrings and these beautiful robes and colors, and there's the butterflies here. And the woman longs to eat Rapunzel, and there's some planted in this garden, but it's the witch's garden, the sorceress, so no one goes in there. And with each passing day she had it, she grew very ill. So obviously her husband climbs over the fence, goes to fetch the Rapunzel. You can see the sun setting over here, and there's, you can see like the beautiful brush strokes and everything. It's very clearly like hatched out here, like the cross hatching, I mean. And the print of his shirt and pants, and like even just this the edging on the sleeve, like so much detail. And yeah, it's very beautiful the way that she's done so much detail, and the design and patterns in everything, that like tribal African kind of look. So there's the sorceress who says, when I read it to my son, I do a sorceress voice. This is my sorceress voice. So it's like, how dare you come into my garden and steal my Rapunzel? You will pay for this, she said. And my son loves it. He loves it. And he's so used to my sorceress voice that when my husband reads him the book and does his sorceress voice, he looks at him like, what are you doing? Doing up? Because my husband goes, how dare you come into my garden and eat my Rapunzel? And it sounds like an old crone, whereas my sorceress voice is very booming and loud. So I encourage you to find your own sorceress voice as you read this book to your child. And she looks very evil, like she's got this green mole and very stern eyes and lips and these big hoop earrings, and then hair that goes back like scary Barbie, if you've seen the Barbie movie. And so she asks for his firstborn child, as you do. So kind of reminds me a bit of Sleeping Beauty there, asking for the firstborn child. And then when the child was born, the sorceress appeared, named the girl Rapunzel, and took her away. And she's a beautiful little baby, and she's got some warts with hair growing on them and stuff, like really sets the scene for this is a scary person. Rapunzel grows up to be a beautiful child. There's the sun, there's some deer, very like setting the scene. But this is a sweet girl who's friends with all the woodland creatures, snow white vibes there. And then she puts her in the tower, and obviously, like the story goes, lets down her hair and she climbs up. And we've got some silhouettes here of a giraffe, and there's an elephant there. So, we can talk about some of the animals living in Africa as well as we go through this book. And then one day, the prince, riding a zebra, just stumbles upon her, hears her beautiful voice, and then wants to meet Rapunzel. And so it's a classic story, but there's this sort of a cultural African lens, in how it's being told, with the clothing, the imagery, the landscape, the animals that are present, and the way that these characters are depicted. And they fall in love, the prince and Rapunzel. He climbs in, and unlike the traditional one, Rapunzel actually, the prince visits by night as the sorceress comes by day. Wink wink, nod nod. And You know, she happens to be with child. She says, oh, can you please help me with my dress? It gets tighter every day. And the sorceress realizes Rapunzel is with child. And she's like, why, you thankless girl? Realizing that Rapunzel was with child. I thought I had separated you from the world, but you have tricked me. Mwahahaha. And so she grabs her by her hair and cuts it off and sends her off into the desert in the wilderness all by herself. The prince climbs up. He's like, Shakara, this is not Rapunzel. Sorceress, tells, ha ha ha, you thought you have come for your dearest. You will never see her again. And then he jumps out of the tower because he's so heartbroken. But he doesn't die. He just blinds his eyes on the thorns that he falls on, and he stumbles through the wilderness blind, eating berries and roots. Oh gosh, so dramatic. And there's a vulture there. And he stumbles through the desert until one day so he stumbles through the desert for years, living on berries and roots, weeping over the loss of his beloved wife, until one day he hears a voice that seems so familiar. He goes towards it. Rapunzel recognizes him, throws her arms around him and weeps, and then her tears, which fall into his eyes, heal his eyes, and he is no longer blind. And then they take their twin children that she was pregnant with, and they go back to his kingdom, and they're accepted joyfully. What I always wonder about the stories is, they go back to the kingdom and they're accepted joyfully, but what happens to like whoever was ruling then? Surely they'd be like, I was quite enjoying being the ruler of this kingdom while this guy was left alone in the desert, and now he's back. What happens to me? Yeah, so very convenient ending to all of these fairy tales, as with all of them. But it's such a beautiful story with the illustrations and everything. I do enjoy telling it and doing the voices with my son. It's just funny. I just find it funny. So there they are, in all their splendor, wearing these beautiful clothes, returning to their kingdom where they're joyfully accepted with open arms. Rapunzel and the prince and their two twin children. I hope you enjoy this one. I like it more for the illustrations and the beautiful voices and characters, the way that she's depicted them. More so than I really enjoy traditional story tales. I kind of just find them funny. But I hope you enjoy reading this one with your children, and let me know how they like it. Thank you.